screen and one
Oh,
guy's.
sorry, I did not share my screen. I'm sorry. Okay, so let me start all over again.
Now I can see.
Okay. Okay, so you should told it to me. Okay, so let me start all over again. Okay, so this is the talk two in this series, or in this series of discussion on atomic habits by James Clear. So in this talk, I'll talk about the four-step model and Q. So this is the kind of overview of the that we are going to have, because the book is very big and extremely useful and helpful. So it would be, I thought it would be good if I can discuss it in, let's say, 6 talks. So in first talk, I have talked about the meaning of habits. How can we make new habits and can leave the bad ones? But what are the ways of doing it? So the book discusses something called as the four-step model of habit building, which we will discuss today. And also the first step, that is cue. The second step is craving. Third is response. Fourth is reward. So, and these will be covered in talk 3, 4, and 5. And finally, we'll summarize the whole book in talk 6. That will be the epilogue. So before getting into today's talk, let me summarize what we discussed in the last talk. So we said that habit is a routine that is performed regularly. So does your outcomes, for example, the money you have, the knowledge you have, etc., are measure of your habits. So if you are not so if you have a habit of spending without thinking, then it's very likely that you will not have much money in your account. And if you have very good learning habits, for example, you just want to learn from here and there, then you must have acquired a lot of knowledge over the time. So then these are the small effects. You learn a bit from here, a bit from there, and if you collect them all, you will become a very knowledgeable person, or very rich person for that matter. So thus the real changes come from compound effect of hundreds of small changes. So for example, if in order to get to 100 push-ups a day, you have to start with 2 push-ups a day. And then you just keep increasing them. So this is one positive aspect, but there is also the negative aspect of it. So even a chain smoker has to start from 1 cigarette. So a chain smoker that smokes, let's say, 100 cigarettes a day, has not started smoking them on the very first day. So the person has reached 100 smokes over the time only. So this has both aspects, the positive and the negative. So you go to hell in steps, you go to heaven in steps, to keep the thing simple, or to say it in a very easy manner. So thus the so-called success is a product of daily habits. So we discussed about processes and goals in the previous talk. So if you want to look, that would also be very helpful. So you can have a look at that talk also. So whatever we call as success is not once in lifetime transformation, but it's a product of daily habits. So if you have let's say a very good learning habits, looking, at least in our context, in the case of researchers, you have a very good habits of looking through papers on archive, reading through papers, then it's very likely that you will have new ideas that you can try out and have research papers on. And we also talked about something called as a continuous improvement philosophy. So this person is Mr. Brailsford. So he was appointed as the a kind of head for British cycling for Olympics. So before 2008 Olympics, they were doing very badly, as we discussed in the last talk. But this person had this philosophy of continuous improvements. So you try to look for very small kind of improvements in whatever you see. So for example, he changed their mattresses. He rubbed alcohol on their tires to have better traction, and so on. So it's a philosophy of continuous improvement that will perhaps lead you to the success. So, and that will, in a way, will change yourself. So you will become a totally different person over the time. So habits are important. Why they're important? Because they will reduce the cognitive load and free up mental capacity. So one very crude example would be this. So let's say a project let's say some problem needs a lot of like mental effort and sustained effort, and also a lot of time hence. So if you have the habit, or if you can make yourself sit on and study, let's say for straight 15 hours a day, then you have greater chances. So thus you don't have to push yourself to sit for 15 hours. You just have to focus on the problem, because you have to think about how to solve the problem, because the time part has already been taken care of, because you have the habit of sitting 15 hours in a stretch. So in this way, attention can now be allocated to other important tasks. So now let me so now talking about this talk. So this is the 4-step model of habit building. So first is the cue. Cue is the kind of observation or hint. So in order to make a habit, you you have to make that is make the precursor that is associated with the habit very conspicuous. I mean, I'll explain it. So please wait for until while. But in order to leave habits, you have to make it invisible. So for example, if you want to leave cigarette, you have to somehow make the cigarette invisible. If it's out of your sight, it's very unlikely that you will smoke. And in order to make yourself or transform yourself into a good reader, you have to somehow make book available all the time or in front of you. Because if you see the book in front of you, it's very likely that you will read it. The second is craving, which we'll talk about in the next talks. Response and reward. So this talk is about cue only. So so before we plunge into the details, let me give you some instructions, because these instructions are very important, and these things must also be kept in mind. So as I also told before, the objective of developing new habits is to make behavior as automatic as possible. So, but this has both pros and cons. You see, if you have a very good habit, because this will happen, because the habit will happen almost automatically without any thought. So if you have a very bad habit of smoking, let's say, so you will smoke without even thinking about it. And if you have a very good habit, you will do that without even thinking about it. So in order to change habits, or in order to make new habits, it is very important to have awareness. So that's the greatest challenge. So unless you are aware of your habit, that you have a bad habit that you want to leave, or if you want to inculcate a new good habit, and unless you're aware of it, you may not be able to develop it. So thus, in a way, there are no good or bad habits. They're only effective, useful, or useless habits. So what are good habits then? So good habits have positive, and the negative have bad habits have the negative outcomes. So for example, so smoking cigarette may reduce the stress now. So let's say you're feeling very stressed out because of something that has happened to you, and you started smoking a cigarette. So that may be useful in reducing the stress, but it's certainly not useful in the long run, because you will have very pulmonary diseases related to lung cancer, etc. So okay. So now let me explain what is the meaning of the 4-step model. So before we go into that, does any one of you have any question, or should I proceed further? No?
I'm good.
Okay,
I don't
fine.
have questions.
Fine, okay. Okay, so so let us start with example 1. So in this example, I'll show that how drinking coffee can become associated with waking up. So for example, let's say you wake up early in the morning, let's say at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. or 6 a.m. according to your schedule, and then you have the craving, or that you want to feel alert instantly. Just after waking up, you want to feel alert, and then the response is you drink a cup of tea, and the reward is that you feel that your craving to feel alert has been satisfied now. But if you practice it over long run, then drinking coffee will be associated with waking up, and I think this is quite common these days in this world. this is, I mean, I'm not saying it is a bad or good habit, but I'm saying it's a habit, and as and it's very very common to most of us, because we associate drinking coffee or tea with waking up. So another example is checking social media. So in this case, checking social media becomes associated with the feeling of being stuck. So social media can be the YouTube, WhatsApp, or any messenger. What others are there? So I don't know. Perhaps Instagram also, and Facebook. Yes, Facebook also. So how does this happen? So the cue or the hint or the observation is that you are working on a research problem or any kind of problem for that matter, on any kind of project that you're working on, and you're stuck at some place. So what you would do, so you have the craving that you want to relieve your frustration because you're feeling stuck and you want to relieve your frustration. So what you would do, you will check WhatsApp. You will take out the phone and check WhatsApp, and somehow the reward, so the reward is you feel relaxed. You have forgotten about the problem for some time, but if you do it for over a long time, over a long run, then checking social media becomes associated with the feeling of being stuck. So you have developed a new habit, and it will happen almost automatically without you even thinking about it. So so okay, so I'm not going any further, but I'll ask you guys now. So do you feel that it is happening to you? Because it is happening to with me, so that's why I took this example.
It happens with me most of the time.
Same
I
with
go
me.
to YouTube to search something related to physics, then somehow some suggestion will come and I will go in another word
Oh
for
yeah,
like
yeah,
half an hour, 1 hour.
yeah. That is true. That is true. Yeah, yeah. Of course, but the good news is that there are ways of, because after reading this book, I mean, of course, I was trying it before also, but after reading this book, I found really good ways of somehow getting rid of my YouTubing habit. But I mean, I'm not 100% successful, but I would say that I have made a lot of progress.
After reading this book, I deleted the application and it really helped. But after some time, I put it back.
Yeah, that is also true. That is also because somewhere the book says that once you have developed a habit, it's kind of imprinted in you. You cannot get it forever, but you have to somehow um, avoid getting into those environments, because okay, so okay, I will also talk about that part, because sometimes it may happen that if you are okay, so the simplest example is, let's say you are at home and you are at university. At home, it's very difficult to just look into these things, WhatsApping, YouTubing, etc. But when you are amongst professors or other colleagues, you will kind of feel very uncomfortable while doing these things in front of them, because they might ask, why do you keep doing YouTubing all the time? So changing environment really helps, as I will also talk about later. Okay. So the first queuing technique, or the first step, is called as they call it as pointing and calling. So the name is itself saying that you point out something that, for example, in this case, that you're watching YouTube. So you point it out to yourself and call it out that now I'm watching YouTube. And believe me, it's very useful. It's very useful. At least you will know consciously that you are doing something which you don't want to do. Okay, so let me give an example of the Japanese railways, because Japanese railways is considered to be undoubtedly one of the best in the world. So okay, so this is how they use this idea of pointing and calling. So whenever a train is approaching a green signal, let's say the green signal, or the green signal has gone, so the operator will point at the green signal and say the signal is green. Although it might sound very stupid, why do I have to call it out anyway? But as we will see, it has its own merits. Okay, and after that, as the train pulls out of each station, so the operator will point out the speedometer, that let's say the speed of the train is 180 or 250 or 300 kilometers per hour at each time, because now the operator knows. Now the operator knows that the speed is actually this, so, and he's very much conscious of it. Because by habit it may happen that that if the speed is 300, I mean, if he just looks at it and doesn't, okay, all I'm trying to say is, so if he says it aloud, then he's consciously aware of it. By just seeing it, he may ignore it, but when he's talking about it, then it's very unlikely that he can ignore it, even unconsciously. So even the staff members on the platform would say, all clear, after that only the train will depart. So studies have found that, I mean, so you can have a look at this. I mean, I found this reference in the book itself. So there is a researcher perhaps called Alice Godenker. So she writes it in Japanese Times in 2008, and the link is this. So the studies have found that this method reduces the errors by up to 85% and cuts accidents by 30%. So then how are you going to use it in your daily life? So let me give you an example now. So let's say you want to cut down the habit of junk food. So and also, as I said before, so first of all, you have to notice it and you have to be aware of it. So unless you're aware of it, you will not change it. So let's say you want to get rid of some bad habit which you think is really bad for you. So you first notice it, you become aware of it, and then you say this. So I'm about to take this pizza, which I really don't need, and eating it will cause health issues. So by saying this, you are consciously, how to say that, awaking yourself that although it's kind of stupid that you should take foods which have high calories in them, but still you are doing it, and this will cause health issues later. And similar kind of things can also be done on YouTube. I mean, I've tried it. I mean, I would say it honestly, it has worked somewhat, but but I'm still improvising it. Okay, so the next method is implementation intention, and I will also first of all I'll explain what is implementation intention, and then I'll give examples that how implementation intention is actually very effective method. So what actually is implementation intention? So you make a plan. So let's say you want to do something or accomplish something, or let's say you want to make up a habit. So because we are talking about the habits now, so let's say you want to make up a habit. In order to make up habits, you need to do some tasks. So the idea is, if you have plans beforehand, like when you are going to do that, where you are going to do that, and how are you going to do that, then it will be more effective as compared to just saying I'm going to do that. So these two are different, and the studies suggest that this method is more effective than just saying I will do it. So if you say I'm going to do it in this way at that point of time on that day, then it's more effective. Okay, so the format is broadly that when some situation arises, I'll perform Y. Okay, so implementation intention is very effective for sticking to our goals, as we will see. So this is based upon the simple idea that people who make a specific plan, that they want to do this at this point of time and on this day, so they are more likely to follow through their plans as comparison to those persons who will just say I'm going to do that. So those people are more likely to finish what they have started. So this notion of planning or implementation intention takes out the foggy notion and leads to concrete action plan. So this takes out the foggy notion, like I want to be productive. This is very ambiguous. What does it mean to be productive? And I want to work hard. What does it mean to be hardworking? So, but when you say that you're going to do this at that point of time, it will just take out these foggy notions, because these will amount to nothing. So one more thing is, when your dreams are vague. So for example, I want to be productive. So it's very vague. So when your dreams are vague, it's very easy to rationalize, little exceptions, and you will never be able to do whatever you wanted to accomplish. You will just say that you want to be productive, but what does it mean to be productive? Unless you have the plan to be productive, you cannot be productive by just saying that you will be productive. Okay, so Now let me talk about some case studies. So I'll talk about two case studies that I've taken from the book. So one is based upon studies by Milne et al, and this has been published in British Journal of Health Psychology in 2002. So this is a study that was done on 248 people in 2001. So they were divided into three groups. So group one was just asked a simple question: how often do you exercise? So they were just given this question to answer: how often do you exercise? And then there was group two, which we can now, let's call it as the motivation group, because they were really given motivation that why should they do exercise, and they were told that they should also read material on health benefits, exercise benefits, etc. And but there was then group number three. So group number three was told these things already. I mean, so they were told to read material on exercise benefits. They were also explained that exercise prevents coronary diseases, etc. But they were told to formulate a plan. So, and they were asked to say something like this: that during the next week, I'll do at least 20 minutes of exercise on day at this time and this place. And you want to know the results now? Okay, so let me give you the results. So what were the results that they found? So they found that the first and the second group, from the, I mean, the persons from the about 30 to 35 to 38% persons from the first group did their exercises. So this was the group one. So and if you recall that group one was not given any kind of motivation, so they were just asked this question: how often do you exercise, and so on. But group two was given a motivation, some kind of orientation. And can you guess the number for group three? Or do you think that group three will do better or worse? Any guess?
They will do better.
It will do better.
How better? How better? How good? How better? Can you give me some number? Because here it is about
Close to maybe 55, 60 type something.
okay. Yanti, would you like to make a guess?
80%.
Richa?
70 to 75%.
91%. That was 91%. So I mean, so in this way we can see that the that implementation intention is really very helpful. So so the idea is, or the moral of the story is, that if you make plans, you are more likely to do it. It's not really true that you will do it all the time, but I'm saying it's more likely that you will accomplish it, that you will be able to follow through. So one more example is, so the studies have been done on like voter turnout. How many percentage of people are coming for voting at a given polling booth, or in totality. So the researchers found that the voter turnout increased when the people were forced to create implementation intentions through some questions. So they were asked some questions, and I found some strange kind of thing. But I mean, I found that even my father uses these kind of things. So whenever he wants say helpers on the shop to do some things, then he will ask some kind of questions. Okay, how are you going to do it? So how are you going to reach that place? And whom person would you talk to, etc., etc. So the questions that they were asked were: what route are you going to take to the polling station? So because they have to think about it. So it may so happen that if they are not asked these questions, they may not do anything, and they will just not go for the polling booth at any rate. But if they but if they are asked this question, then they may make plan that, okay, well, I'm going to go at the polling station at this time, and I'm going to take this route if I'm going through car, or maybe I'll take this bus. So they found that when they were asked these kind of questions, I mean, I don't have the percentage right now. Okay, I'm sorry, I should have put the percentage. So it turned out that the voter turnout increased when they did this. Okay, and a related aspect. So I talked about implementation intention, which is, if something happens, then I'll do this. So yet another way of queuing is habit stacking. So it is related to implementation intention. So So before talking about habit stacking, let me tell you some small story, and you may be able to guess what is going to come next. So perhaps you know about Denis Diderot. Denis Diderot was a French philosopher. So so he was like very poor person, and he had to marry his daughter. I think her name was Catherine, but he did not have much money to pay in her wedding. But at any rate, but then he was like a great philosopher, and he also made, or he also wrote the book Encyclopedia, some book, some encyclopedia. So a queen, I think a French queen, perhaps. I'm not able to recall it right now. So so she was also a very so she was also a book lover. So she purchased Diderot's whole library and gave him about 1,000 pounds. So I'm talking about, so this is about 18th century or maybe 17th century. So she gave him 1,000 pounds at that time, which is worth $150,000 today. So what did Diderot do? So Diderot first of all bought some purple, I think purple or scarlet robe for him. But then he found that other furniture in the house was kind of mismatched, was mismatching with the color. So he purchased some other things, and he threw out his straw chair. He purchased a leather sofa and so on. So this is kind of avalanche. One thing happens after the other, one thing and the third thing, and so on. So if you do this, something happens. If you do that, something else happens. So this is a kind of avalanche, or the Diderot effect, as psychologists would say. So the idea is, we often decide what to do next based on what we have just finished, and this can be very useful in our case, and I will explain how we can use it for our good. So the key idea is to tie your desired behavior, whatever you wanted to do, with what you're already doing. So this is I mean, so if I say the habit stacking formula is something like this. So after I do this, I'll perform something new. So current habit is something that you're already doing, and you want to develop a new habit. So once you do the habit that you are regularly doing, you will do something new, which you want to inculcate in you. So let me give an illustration of Diderot effect. So this is kind of what happened with me. So that's why I took this example. Okay, so let's say you love books a lot. So you purchase a lot of books. Then a question will arise, now where would I read these books? So then you will plan, okay, I'll take library membership. So this is one possibility. And I will purchase table and chair, new table and chair, just because you've purchased a lot of books. Now where would I store the books? Okay, so I will buy a new shelf for storing the books. But then if I read books, I also want to take notes. How would I take notes? So one possibility is that you will purchase pen and paper, and you will take notes on them. But it is difficult to organize notes on pen and paper, because you have to cut down. If you want to make changes or improvements in your notes, you have to cut down them and you have to write again. But then on iPad, it doesn't happen. So then you may also purchase an iPad for it. But what about the organization? Let's say you stick to this pen and paper and take notes, but you have to organize your notes as well. So let's say you took notes from cosmic microwave background, you took notes from quantum field theory, you took notes from quantum mechanics, let's say. So you cannot put them all at one place. Or let's say you took also notes from general relativity. So you have to organize them in different folders. So just because you bought books, you will also buy folders, you will also buy shelf, you will also buy table and chair, you will buy paper and pen, you will buy iPad, and also you will buy note-taking apps like Notability or Good Notes, and you'll also buy pencil. So this may be, I mean, of course, it takes some money. It will take some money out of you, but it may, but the Diderot effect can also be taken from the negative, I mean, way. So one way could be, let's say you feel anxious, and then you.
Rahul bhai,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Maybe stupid one, but what I have understood.
Mhm.
based on this Diderot effect, so one used to start a new habit based on the habit what he's already performed or still performing under the process, right?
Uh, yeah, so the idea is that you will perform something different based on what you're already doing.
Yes. So what is that habit actually insisting me from inside to start smoking a cigarette because I haven't done that anything before.
Anxiety. Anxiety, and someone has told you that perhaps if you are anxious, then cigarette smoking might be useful for you. And once you do it, you will start smoking two instead of one, and then three, and then four, and then five. And you will maybe try some other tobacco products also.
Okay, okay. So I understood, but let's suppose I am reading a book. Okay, that will insist me to read some other book. Let's say, whether it is based on philosophy or mathematics, depending upon my interest of knowledge, what do I, and to acquire and all that.
Okay.
But all of sudden, a very good human being,
Mhm.
which has not yet been trapped by any sort of those what is that, alcohol or drugs and all that. All of sudden, because of some depression or stress or whatever they call it, suddenly he used to start that. So is it because of accidental? I mean sudden drastic change in his lifestyle, or actually some anxiety is already there inbuilt for a long time, uh, which is actually forcing him to start the cigarette smoking and or alcohol, as you said.
See, I think there can be many factors, but the first thing, but this is what I understand. So perhaps anxiety is one of the main factors, and it will also depend upon your environment. Okay? For what kind of person you want to have friendship with. So
Okay.
if your friends are doing this, then it's very likely that you will also start doing it after some point of time. It's
Yeah,
very
that you have already told. If you keep, if you do want to read a book, then keep it in front of your eyes always. So
Mhm.
it will insist you to read, or mm, it will keep your interest alive
Mhm.
despite of your busy schedules. So like that only, environment certainly has some impact. But
Yeah.
here the red statement you have mentioned, Detroit effect. Yeah.
Mhm.
After I will perform, that statement says, is it
Mhm.
not? After I finish my current habit, I will start the new one.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden I found it's like a quantum jump. I
There's some kind of disturbance. Can you please? I could not hear you. Could you please say that again?
No, you have made a statement there written in the red letters saying
Mhm.
that after I will perform, after
Mhm.
I finish the current habit, I will start a new one.
Mhm.
So what I am saying, I did not find the continuity because it seems like to me like a discrete quantum jump. All of a sudden, a very good person, very disciplined person, all of a sudden got trapped with some alcohol and the drugs.
Mhm.
So one reason you said that is, I believe perfectly all right and responsible is anxiety. But is that enough for a very good disciplinary person to forced into the misery side of the life? I don't know.
No, that is not true. But I'm saying ki if the person does not see any other option of getting out of anxiety, so
Okay.
there are many ways. There are many ways. The person, it's personal. Of course, at the end of the day, it's personal choice.
So can I not say that if at all I have no destination, then any road can get me there, because any road is equally likely. So is it something that cigarette was available and reachable to me, thereby I reached it very easily, or I could have gone to somewhere else, some other bad habit also.
You see, I mean, if you have now, let's say, okay, so maybe I can take two cases. Let's say you have a prior knowledge of cigarette, that if you smoke cigarette, you will ultimately have cancer. So if you have this knowledge, then it's
Okay.
very unlikely that you will opt for cigarette when, okay, and let's say you've also heard that cigarette might be useful in reducing the stress. Let's say
Okay.
you've heard these two things.
Okay.
So but if let's say you are actually in stress, then it's very unlikely that you will opt for cigarette. But if someone is insisting, "Arey, theek hai, it's okay, it won't be any bad to just give it a try," and you found it satisfying, it served the purpose that you want, that you tried it for, then it's very
Okay,
likely
okay,
that you will try it again,
okay, okay. Got it.
and that may lead to something else. So because it's a tobacco product, you may buy a lighter, you may buy some cigarette
Necessary,
box, etc., etc. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
necessary ingredients.
yeah, exactly. So
Okay,
so in that case, Diderot effect will have negative impact.
okay.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let me give some illustration. So how would you use this habit stacking? So let's say you have a very bad habit of spending money. So what you can say, or what you can do is, and let's say you have that craving of buying something over 10,000 rupees, or maybe even larger, 10,000, 20,000, whatever. So you will say, okay, if I want to buy something over 10,000, I will spend 24 hours, because and it's very likely that if you spend this much amount of time, it's very likely that you will not purchase it unless it's very useful for you. So this will be helpful in taking care of your financial problems. So this will really be helpful, because most of the financial problems, because it's about instant decisions. So if you find it very hard, so of course sometimes instant decisions are useful, and they are and they have to be taken, but many a times it's you don't need to make instant decisions. So if you wait for some time, then you will say to yourself, is it really needed? And if you have that question in your mind, it's very likely that you will not buy, or you will not spend money. So it's very helpful technique. So okay, and this is what I try sometimes. So whenever I do YouTubing, I'll start the timer. That's why I wear watch all the time. So whenever I do YouTubing, I'll start the timer and keep the track of the time, that how much time I've spent in like in watching the YouTube. So this is what I try, and I found it useful for me, and I'm still, progressing. Okay, and perhaps one possibility is that you just go outside and take a 5-minute break or 5 minutes walk. So maybe during that time you will forget that you had the craving of watching YouTube. Perhaps this will be helpful. I mean, this is my example. So, and one thing can be for habit stacking is, so so this is particularly relevant for researchers, for us. Okay, so I mean, because it has happened with me many a times that I have ignored archive papers, new research. So one possibility can be that after planning for the day, that after I plan that I have to do these things in the day, I'll see archive papers. So in that way, I want to develop this habit of reading archive papers every day, or I mean in weekdays. So, and this I'm doing every day at any rate. I'm doing planning for every day. So I can just attach this habit with this habit. So these are some examples. So now there are some things. For example, so what I'm going to talk next is, perhaps you know about it already, in some way or the other. So next I'm going to talk about motivation, which comes from inner you, or self-discipline, or whatever. That is true. But even the environment has a very strong role to play. So it's not always possible to just keep motivating you all the time. But it is certainly possible that if you make changes in your environment, then you may get new levels of motivation. So this is what this section is going to talk about. So the thing is, or the observation is, people often choose products not because what they are, but because where they are, or how easily they are accessible. So if you go to a grocery store, so it's very likely that the products that are on your eye level, you are more likely to buy them, as compared to those that are near your foot, or very down. For example, so they use this. So the storekeepers or the owners use this idea. So they will keep expensive things at your eye level, and they will keep less expensive things down. because it's more likely that you will buy those things that you can see easily.
They also know the gravitational bending.
Gravitational bending.
Oh, they also know how to attract the customers.
Oh, yeah.
That's a business trick.
Yeah. It is. It is indeed. It is indeed. So, I think I've not included one study. So that study was done in a hospital. I have 10 more minutes. I'll try to finish quickly. So that study was done in a hospital because the researcher was quite worried about this fact that most of the persons that will come in the hospital will take soda instead of just the water, because perhaps water contain or soda contains carbon dioxide, and that may not be as useful as just taking plain water. So and in the waiting room where they will enter, there were many soda dispensers or mineral water dispensers. So what she did, she did not remove those soda dispensers out from the hall, but she just make an arrangement so that those soda dispensers were difficult to reach, and the water dispensers were easy to reach. So and the things changed. So uh, the persons that were coming to the hospital started taking more water as compared to the soda water. So this is environment is really very plays a very important role. So environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior, as I just given some examples of. Okay, so and a psychologist whom name I'm not able to recall have says that behavior is a function of person in their environment. So B is the behavior, P is the person, and E is the environment. So this depends upon both these quantities, not just environment, not just a person, because a person will behave differently in the same environment. A person who is introvert will try to just run away from a lot of persons, and if a person is extrovert, he likes to talk to different persons, he will just try to keep himself at the center of the discussion. So the environment is same, but the but it depends upon the person as well. So and as I just said, the customers will buy product not because they want it, but how they present it to them. So if you wrap, let's say, very cheap chocolates in a very fancy box, then it's very likely that people will purchase it. Also, although the box contains crab chocolate of no worth, but still that would be bought. So the more obvious a product or service, the more likely you're going to try it. So the reason is that vision is the most powerful of all human sensory abilities, because humans, so first thing is humans have about 11 million sensory receptors. So nose, touch, etc. And nose, hearing, I think hearing is also, okay, I'm not so sure about that, but touching is also a kind of sensory uh, sensory receptors are also used for touching sensation. But then out of those 11 million, approximately 10 billions are dedicated to the vision only. So that's why vision is the most powerful of all human sensory abilities. We really learn a lot, make a lot of decisions based on what we see. So thus it is very important, because as I said that, I mean, I give the example of the hospital. So thus it is very important to live and work in environments that are filled with protective cues. Oh, I mean, sorry, it's productive cues, and is devoid of unproductive ones. So if you are at a university amongst, let's say, very good persons who are doing their research in a very enthusiastic manner, you will automatically find yourself motivated. You don't have to push yourself from the inside, but because of the very presence of the other persons, you'll find yourself motivated. And okay, I've already covered this. Okay, so habits can be easy to change in the new environment. So for example, let's say you are a smoker. I mean, I'm not saying a smoker is a bad person or anything like that, but let's say you think that smoking is a bad habit. So if you associate yourself with some kind of religious persons, some kind of spiritual organization, then because those persons are not, or those persons somehow prohibit smoking, etc., it will be very likely that if you associate with them for a long time, you will also leave cigarette. It's very likely. So, and also it's very, So it's very easy to read books. For example, if you have a shelf above your table where you can see all the books in front of you, then it's very likely that you will read some books at one point of time. And also it's very easy to practice piano when it is in front of you. So, and it works the other way also. So if your piano is distracting you a lot, then you just have to remove it from your side. So if it is removed, then it is very likely that you will not play it. So it works both way. So now perhaps we have come to the last part of this talk today. So I'll also talk about self-control. Okay. So these are some of the top secret things, I would say, that I mean I knew in some case, but not in this manner. I mean we are always taught to develop this feeling of self-control, self-discipline. That's okay. That's okay. But there are some other factors also. So at least according to the book, and I also think and I also agree with this. I mean, how should I say it? I mean, I'm almost convinced with this assertion that disciplined persons are better in their at structuring their life in a way that does not require heroic willpower. So one thing is you will have utter self-control, exceptional willpower. Then you will enforce yourself in doing something, and you will stop yourself from doing something not. Let's say you will forcefully stop yourself that I will not watch YouTube, but it's very hard. You will not win each and every time. But the idea is you spend less time in tempting situations. So for example, it's so if you want to leave cigarette, I'm coming again and again to the same example because this is the most easy example to understand. So then you should certainly avoid going to bars and try to avoid those friends of yours who are smokers. Okay, so but if you don't do that, it's very you have to have the utter amount of self-control and self-discipline if you want to leave cigarette. So self-control is only a short-term strategy. It will not work for a longer time. So, and it is easier to avoid temptation than resist it. So if you avoid temptation, if something is not in front of you, then it's very unlikely that you will not pursue it. So it is true that you may be able to resist temptation once or twice, but on a long run, it is very likely that your desires will override you. So finally, the summary. So in this talk, we talked about the first step of habit building, cueing. That whatever habit you're trying to build, whatever that hints new habit developing, you should make it very obvious. It should come in front of you. It should be very easily accessible, etc. And we discussed some methods for doing that. We studied pointing and calling. We studied implementation intention. We also studied about habit stacking. And finally, we also talked about designing the environment, because environment, as I talked before, plays a very, very important role in order to build up a habit. And okay, and it is also true. So if you want to leave the bad habits, you just do opposite of what you did for the good habits, for developing the good habits. So this takes care of this talk. So in the next talk, we'll talk about the second part of it, or the second step, that how would you make it attractive, that how would you make the habit that you're going to develop attractive so that you will pursue it. Okay, thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions, you can ask them now.
Thank you so much for good talk, sir.
Okay. Any questions you have, you can ask them now. Because these things, I mean, so in my opinion, these things are not much discussed. They are actually practiced. So if you practice them, then they are useful. Then they are useful. It's kind of pointless to discuss a lot about these things, because these are some ideas that you try. You may improvise or you may improve yourself. If they don't work for you, try something different.
So have you started some habits, good habits, or removing bad habits?
At least I'm trying that YouTubing thing. So
Oh.
whenever I watch YouTube, I just start my watch timer.
Actually, I was wasting my time in shorts. Whenever I was going back to room and laying down, I was used to watching shorts. When I read this book, I deleted that application.
Okay.
So really it helped, because if it's not there, how will you use it? You go to browser and you log in and you see it's more likely to difficult.
Yeah, that is
So
true.
it decreased.
Mhm,
Really it decreased.
mhm.
Yeah, I have also did the same. Like I was using that shorts, and now the application is not in my phone. Actually, Rahul did it. He deleted this application. So now the frequency is very less.
Mhm. Good.
Because if you are watching using Instagram too much or Facebook too much, you simply delete the application, then you will have to go to the browser, log in, and that will, you will feel lazy and you will not do as often.
Exactly. So this is how we make it unattractive. Make some habit unattractive. That's also part of habit building.
But as I understood, this is half of the story. So what I mean to say, just because I am not doing anything which is time consuming and not useful, at least at present scenario.
Mhm.
So does that fulfill my purpose? I should do something what I should need to do.
Yeah, that is true. But you see,
That's also true.
there are two parts of it. So
Yeah, that's why I said it's a half of the story. So first
So
of all, you have to get yourself from the bad habit. Get yourself away from the bad habit,
Mhm.
and then you try to make yourself busy with something good one and useful one.
Exactly.
Okay. So
I mean,
how
some
difficult it is to build up a bad habit, but how easy to get yourself fall in love with a bad one.
yeah, that is true. That is quite true. I mean, the thing is something that is very easy to do, or some habit that is very easy to do. It's very likely that you will develop that habit. So, for example, okay. So, time and again, I think of the smoking thing all the time. I mean,
I am
because
after
this is
years
the
back.
most because this is the easiest example.
Easiest example to put forward. Actually, every condition comes in this habit now.
Yeah. So because cigarettes are very easily available, you just have to buy. You just
No, sir. Actually, cigarettes are really good example because they have every single criteria. Like during 1970, government banned advertisement for nicotine or any tobacco product.
Mhm.
But still they are in the market and people are purchasing. So one guy did the investigation, then how is it happening? Why government, how government is getting uh, they say that it is helping the economy and we are getting taxes from nicotine, that's why government is not banning. They have just banned the advertisement, but still how is youth is getting how should I say, motivated to go in. So they are doing indirect advertisement. Like if you see a very powerful character in a movie or a very macho person, he is doing smoking. A very high profile person, a very white collar job person, they are smoking. So indirectly youth is getting the idea, oh, powerful people smoke, or a very high standard people smoke. That's how they do indirect advertisement.
Yeah, true. And there's one more thing. So I think I read it somewhere. So they started, I think in 1960s, around 1960s in the US, they started putting those horrifying kind of
Pictures.
pictures. Yes, the
Yes.
pictures that if you smoke, your lungs will become black or you will get cancer, etc. So then, just to show that how brave they are, just to that the youth, because they wanted to show that how brave they are, they will opt it anyway. That the thing is, we are not scared. Let it happen to us,
We
but
are
we
not
will do it
scared. We
anyway.
are not.
So they took it otherwise.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
They took it as a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They took it as a challenge. Actually, every time they will increase the taxes on the tobacco products so that people will consume less, but it never happened.
I think whatever Rahul bhai you discussed, I mean, it's a totally personal feeling because I have never been to any sort of this alcohol and all this. uh, as you gave an example and so did the Nikhil. I think it is an inbuilt human psychology. Invariably, they will go no matter how hard you may try. If a person is decided from inside, I need this, and which will at least reduce some of my stress, or it will enhance my what is that called, aristocracy in the society. So there is no question of environment and my education status, nothing, I believe.
Yeah, true.
That that is also true, but sir, I think in my personal opinion, environment is a very big factor how you are going forward in your life.
Undoubtedly,
Because
undoubtedly.
if you will live along with the friends, like if you are having a 5 friends group and 4 of them are smoking, it's very probable that one point of time you will also start, or you will not feel that offended when you are doing. But if you are in a religious group like sir said, or in a group like in your lab nobody is smoking, it is very less probable that even you will think about it,
Yeah.
because you are not getting chance to smoke,
Yeah,
because none
yeah.
of them smoke.
See,
They
you
may
have
say I don't like, you will not get enough time to get the exposure for the smoking.
Nikhil, we both have witnessed one very beautiful example, Vijay,
Which
right? So, director actually closed that Krishna Gate, right? But he was very much in his habit. He was going
no,
all
no,
the
no,
way to
actually sir,
Tarabai
he was already involved in that habit.
already.
If you don't have that habit to start with, your environment is very much means effective.
What you tell me, I am giving you an example, and maybe it's a hypothetical, but still some probability exists. Let's suppose 5 friends are staying in a hostel together for different years in an academic. So if they're really close and 4 of them suddenly finish their degree and they are about to leave, then after they left, fifth one may actually smoke cigarette just because he doesn't find anyone around.
Yeah, that is true.
You are in the actually second criteria. You want a person to be very high willpower and not a disciplined one.
I am telling, see the effect of environment.
Now, so you have drastically changed the environment, no?
Yeah, ultimately it boils down to your choice. What choice you want to make in a given situation.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
No,
your
choices always depend, sir. But as you said now, a self-disciplined person which is following some kind of discipline may not have to need a very heroic willpower or very special nature. That what is happening. If you are a very means you don't have control over your emotions, or you don't have control over your deeds, then the environment will be more effective on you rather than controlling yourself.
No, actually, I did not say that. I actually meant that even if you're a self-disciplined person who has a lot of control over himself, but you may not be able to do it over the time and every time.
Over the time, you may not be.
So, I mean, it is helpful, of course. I mean, ultimately, it boils down to your choice in a given situation. That whether you want to do something or not. I mean, things may become hard at some point of time, but it's again your choice that you want to quit or you don't want to quit.
But finally, that choice also is being enforced by my surrounding environment, is it not? Can I take independent of environment or my surrounding people? Can one take a decision which is totally has nothing to do with environment or nearby people to whom he or she is related to?
I think in that case also you will have choices, because your choices will ultimately somehow will affect the environment, but then it is still possible. You cannot follow everyone's direction. Let's say some person will say that you should do this, some person will say that you should do that.
Rahul, that is correct. That is correct. But you or myself or somebody else, everybody has their dearest and nearest one. At least while taking taking decisions, whether it is personal or professional, somewhere down the line they might be thinking what will happen to my thing, right? If
Yeah, yeah.
if orphan, I don't I have not given thought about it, but being a family member, I